Welcome to Mysteries, Monsters, and Mayhem.
I'm Shannon Lawrence.
And I'm MB Partlow.
Quick content warning before we get started. This podcast may contain language and disturbing content, so enter at your own risk. Hello.
Hello.
The Gates.
It's us.
Who did you expect? Was it not us?
That would be fun to have somebody do an opening for us.
That's not us?
That's not us.
Let's totally do that. Now without it, though, that's like...
Well, true. But you could always delete
that.
That's what you should do. You should delete that sentence and then have me saying, you could delete that. And laughing maniacally.
Now nobody knows.
And people will be like, what did we miss? Well,
you'll find out.
Maybe you will. Maybe you won't.
We'll see.
It's that kind of, you know.
Day, week, year,
yeah,
century,
decade.
I got left out decade, so I should have hit that before century.
Yes,
yeah, millennium,
fortnight. It's that type of fortnight.
It is. Yeah, I know. I got nothing to chat about these days.
I know. It's like
what's been going on with you? I'm like, God,
nothing good.
Nothing that you want to talk about if you're trying to have fun.
I did find curtains for my den at the Goodwill.
I measured the windows at the cabin for curtains, but I haven't bought them yet.
Look at us. Just fucking interior design divas now.
You know, whatever curtains I find won't be great, but they will be replacing bed sheets.
Yes. I highly recommend that. Actually, I didn't get them at Goodwill. I got them at the ARC. I prefer the ARC.
Yeah.
It is a good place for curtains, just saying.
For curtains. All right. I don't think I ever thought about going there for curtains, so there you go.
Well, you know how insanely
I will say that
cheap
the ARC and Goodwill are never my first thought for things.
Home goods.
But especially home goods, because then I just feel like it's all soaked in there, everything that happened. This sofa has had people have sex on it 2,000 times. You're welcome.
The same people? That's a lot of sex.
No, it changed hands. That is the fluids of, I don't even want to think about how many people. Now do you understand why I don't want to buy furnishings there?
Well, okay, but
I'm also very allergic to dogs, and what I've learned is even if you can't smell it on there, once you get it home, you're going to find out if there was a dog around it.
In my defense, I will say not a lot of people have sex on their curtains. I'm sure there are some.
No, that's what I was saying, dog and cat. I had totally changed my whole discussion then, you smart ass.
Well, I can't help myself. It's built in. It's one of the bonuses of being my friend. The non sequiturs and absolute nonsense that just flows out. The other day we're sitting at dinner and I look at Joe so seriously and I say, I really don't like the pajamas I'm wearing. I think I need to wash them and donate them. And he just looks at me like, why am I so seriously, like he cares? Like,
apropos of nothing, I don't like these pajamas.
And then after he looked at me and went, well, that sounds like a good course of action or some completely straight response. I looked at him and I laughed and I was like, why? I sometimes wonder how you put up with me. And he's like, well, I never know what's coming next.
Right? So you just burst out with the nonsense random things, and I will suddenly burst out in the middle of nothing watching TV. I don't know, with some stupid deep thing I had been thinking about for years, and suddenly just thought, hey, let's talk about this. So imagine being on the receiving end of that when you just want to watch TV.
I have been known to do that. Or my favorite, I have stopped doing this. Thank God, I've stopped doing this. You go to bed, you turn out the light, and you're both trying to fall asleep. Now, you have to understand, I am it's slowly changing, but I'm the person who falls asleep fairly easily.
Yeah.
Joe's the person who has to do the mental wind down and it takes a long time to fall asleep. So he's just drifting off, and all of a sudden it's like, wham! Well, what do you think we should do with our life insurance?
He's like, let's sleep on it. How about that?
And I always bring up some some weighty subject, because I could talk about it for 3.5 minutes and then be like, okay, we'll talk about it more in the morning. Whereas he's going to be awake all night thinking about it.
Man, you're mean.
I stopped. He had to tell me.
We do not go to bed together, so
that would.
He goes to bed way earlier than I do and gets up way earlier than I do. And that is what works for us. But that means there are no bedtime conversations, although I will get in bed and be like, fuck, I need him to do this before I get up. So then I'll like text him, and then his phone's all droid. And sometimes he'll wake it up, sometimes he won't. So sometimes he'll like stir and reach for it. I'm like, no, it's for me. Go to sleep. It's like, okay.
And also, since we were talking about buying things, I bought the most glorious purse. It is so ridiculous. I was like, I want that. It came into the shop, and I didn't give anybody a chance.
You were like,
I was like, that is mine. Don't even look at it. So it's a Betsy Johnson purse. I don't know designers. I just happen to remember this one is Betsy Johnson. And I looked it up. This woman who brought it in, she's bringing in some of her mother's things. Her mother's still with us. Her mother just shops a lot. So she said, yeah, I have this one purse. I didn't know if you'd want to take it or not. If you don't want it, just tell me and I'll take it too. I'll go donate it at Goodwill. So, of course, I spy it and I'm like trying to shove it down my pants. I'm like, no, nobody else can have it. So the front of the purse looks like an old-fashioned rotary phone.
okay.
And then the top is a phone handset that you can plug into your cell phone, and it really works.
Nice.
So I'm like, I have to wear this. I have to take this out in public, and somebody has to fucking call me so I can answer my purse. Oh my God.
That would be fantastic.
Right?
Yeah.
And I just was like, ridiculously excited about it. And Nikki was like, excuse me, thing two was like, do you know there are drag queens who would probably kill for this purse? And I'm like, they would have to.
They will have to fight me.
Because,
you better hope they're small. I've not met many a small drag queen, but they're out there.
Well, many of them are on heels, so I might be able to outrun them.
I don't know, man. Man legs and heels. I've always hated that their legs look so phenomenal.
In
like
heels,
if a man puts on heels and shaves and all that stuff, they've got fantastic fucking legs, man. Because they got the muscle that we can't build like that.
Yep.
Yeah. My daughter was like, I wish I could run in high heels. I forget what we watched that involved that. And I was like, it's actually easier to run in high heels than, because I had to wear heels when I managed a theater. Oh. And I was going right up and down those stairs. I'd have to run up to projection. I'd have to help the ushers clean. I'd have to jump behind concession stand.
Just practice.
And I was like, it was easier when I was running than I was trying to walk slowly on those puppies on tile. No, me gusta. But it's true, though. I did find it much easier to run in heels.
Was it one of the
who knows?
Dinosaur movies?
What? No.
What? Jurassic Park.
Oh, I was like...
Not Land Before Time. No, Jurassic Park.
I had like cartoon dinosaurs and heels in my head.
Because she wears...
I think you heard that when I said, what?
I did. I knew exactly what was in your head.
Yes, we went and saw Jurassic World. It could have been that. And that would make sense because we were in the car, so we would have been driving back from that. Yes.
Oh, so you saw the new one?
Yeah, that's what we were watching when my window got broken out by some douchebag with a slingshot.
Some limp dick motherfucker.
Oh, yeah, clearly. But
what did you think of the movie?
I liked it. But again, I'm an easy please with action flicks. And I love the Jurassic. There were a lot of little clever sinbacks because it unites the characters from the two different Jurassic worlds.
I thought they did that really cleverly.
Yes. I liked like there was a little... we're talking just little distinct things. There was one big obvious one, but little like Jeff Goldblum at one point, the pilot, who, by the way, she's gorgeous. I don't know her actress name. I don't know her character name. I don't know any of their character names.
Yeah,
honestly,
she was gorgeous.
Yeah, but I looked at her, I was like, I'm sure I've seen her in other stuff, but this whole look is working for her, and she's stunning. But anyway, she looks at Jeff Goldblum, and his shirt has become unbuttoned. Mm-hmm. Again, reference to the first one. And she just kind of looks downs him, and he's like, oh, and he buttons it up. So those little things like that, that's obviously a little nod to him having the shirt open and becoming
Yes.
the sex icon he should have already been. But that's when a lot of people discovered that Jeff Goldblum was sexy, right? They were like, oh, shit, wait.
Wait, that's
What happened here?
That's the Fly.
First time I saw him was on Earth Girls Are Easy, so he was already sexy in that. And that was one of his much earlier flicks. But anyway, yes, it was good.
Yeah, I liked it.
So we watched for movie night. We usually watch stuff the kids wouldn't have seen because it's way, way back. And so we watched Escape from New York one week, and then we watched Escape from LA last night. And I have to say, with all the political stuff, there's very clear movies we think of. We think of Orwell or, books and Handmaid's Tale and all of that stuff. But Escape from LA, because the first one, New York has become a prison. Escape from LA, there's a big earthquake and LA splits off. New York is the
first one? Or
yes,
LA? Okay.
New York is the first one. And LA was at least a decade later.
Yes, because he's
aged significantly. He's hotter.
And he can fit in those jeans. Because he had the jeans. He wore the jeans from the first movie. The second movie,
then they made him
like,
change
all right.
into leather.
Well.
So that makes sense why. Because they were pretty tight. He was buffer, though. I mean, it's not like he got heavier. He was buffer.
No, I didn't have any problem looking at him in either of those movies.
The political statements in it, I was like, holy shit, it's now. Like, I hadn't even thought of that in reference now. So I highly recommend people watch that as well as read Handmaid's Tale right now and read some Orwell. But
I tried to rewatch the first one, New York, Escape from New York, and it starts very slowly. Mm-hmm. And I kept watching it going, the fact that I may have had at some point in my life a longer attention span than I have now.
I obviously did, but everybody did. Movies have had to pick up. But yeah, so the people who were there, so there's no smoking, no drinking, no women unless you're married, he says. And I'm like, well, fuck you. Then no men also. Like, what does no women mean? Say no sex, you fucker. Anyway, that annoyed me. For some reason, that line just really stuck out to me. And I'm like, what do you mean no women? You mean no sex? Fuck right off. Women does not equal sex. Stop it.
No.
But, it's become this very proper, prudish place. And so atheists are also sent to the island. So you're sent to the island of LA if you aren't, and there's a very Christian leader, and the capital is moved to Lynchburg, Virginia, and like all this shit.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And so there's a lot of political undertones and religious stuff in there that was very pertinent to now. And it just caught me by surprise because I was just looking to watch this old action flick I've watched before. So anyway, like so many people are in it. Steve Buscemi and Pam Grier. And
I don't remember any of that. But
Bruce Campbell.
I've only seen the Escape from LA. I think I've only seen that once.
Okay.
Where I've seen Escape from New York a couple of times. So maybe I'll go back and
whereas I
those.
discovered LA first, of course.
It
works out that way for the age and stuff. Because I think it came out in the 90s, and the first one was like late 70s. Might have been 78. I don't know. But anyway, there's that span. So I discovered LA first, and then went back and watched New York eventually when I could. I got it at Blockbuster, I believe.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's where we got Heathers the first time I watched it.
Oh, yeah.
Joe kept saying, we need to watch this movie Heathers. And I was like, what's it about? And he's like,
Heathers.
These 4 teenage girls. And I said, stop right there. It took him a while to talk me into watching it.
And here it is, such a good movie.
And now I quote it all the time.
Right? But yeah, I guess if you like broke it down and just did the storyline. So it's these 4 uppity teenage girls.
Yeah, rich bitch. It just
that bully people at the school, basically. Yeah. It's the predecessor of Mean Girls, is what it is.
We did that one day. I sat down with the girls, and I think their Auntie Amy might have been with us, and we watched. I showed them Heathers, and they showed me Mean Girls. And we laughed uproariously through
right, because both are dark comedy. I mean, Heather's obviously darker.
And we still say, stop trying to make fetch happen.
That and Clueless and the movie Buffy the Vampire Slayer for me are like huge quoters.
She doesn't even go here. I love that kid. That guy. What was the other one? Oh, yes, Clueless.
Yes.
Love that movie.
Which it's still so cute. And then I forgot that Ant-Man is in it as her Josh, her stepbrother or whatever that she has a crush on.
Yeah.
Yeah. They pull it off. But yeah, I was like, oh, hey, it's Paul Rudd. There's so many people at Brittany Murphy, though. Yeah. So different from her later role.
And it was funny because when I saw that, the guy who plays her dad.
Yeah.
Didn't he play Carla's husband on Cheers?
Hold on. I'm trying to think of who it was. I can't picture her dad right now.
He's short. He's not incredibly handsome.
Oh, he has a big head.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know because I never got in Cheers to where she had that husband.
I think that was her husband when the show started.
Oh, well, I watched the first season and I don't remember. So
he wasn't on a lot. Anyway, I can't remember the actor's name. I can't.
Yeah, I know who it is now though, and I can picture him, and he's been in lots of stuff. But yeah. I don't know. I didn't watch Cheers when it was on. And so I found it on streaming a couple years ago, and we started watching it together. And I guess just we got distracted by newer, shinier things.
It always amazes me that that's where Woody Harrelson got his start.
Right, as a big doofus, too.
Yes, playing that big dumb guy.
Uh-huh.
Love Woody Harrelson. Well,
I guess I'm starting this
You're
time.
starting.
Okay, so I'm doing another tame one, you guys.
Oh, God, next week she's going to come back with something horrific.
It's true, I already know what I want to do. But I try to balance it out. I do. Try to balance. Although usually they're still a little harder. But anyway, this one was just interesting. I happened across it again on a meme on Facebook, and I was like, oh, hey! So this is called the Campden Wonder. Here's the thing. I'm just going to tell you right now. British words, I understand that half the letters don't actually get said. I don't know which letters to leave out, though, so I'm probably going to mispronounce every single fucking city and all of that. And you guys can you can deal with it, because I honestly don't care about insulting pronunciation. I just don't care. Okay, thank you. Thank you for your time. All right, in 1660. Wow, this is a B crime.
It is. This is so me. I can't believe you got there first.
There's no hatchet.
Oh.
A 70-year-old man named William Harrison was the manager or steward of Viscountess Camden's estate in Chipping Campden. Now, it's spelled Campden, so it could be Campden or Camden. And it's just easier to say Camden. It's the deal. And Gloucester, or is that Gloucester? Gloucester. See, I knew it! You don't pronounce half the letters. England. It's dumb. England.
Didn't they invent Worcestershire sauce?
Hey, make a Brit say aluminum. They add extra letters. Aluminium without fail. Uh-huh. And I'm like, those letters aren't even in there, y'all. You take letters out of your other words. Why can't you? How are you adding ones now? This is so confusing. Okay. Have we insulted Brits? I have British friends.
Not anymore.
It's okay. Wait. It's okay. I can say it. I have British friends. Does that sound familiar, folks? I'm in it right now. Okay. It's okay for me to be racist. I have black friends. Right? How many people have said that?
A lot.
Okay. The Viscountess's name was Lady Juliana Noel. Like, it might be Noel. I'm going with Noel. Anyway, I don't even think I'm going to say it again, so whatever. Her manor had been occupied by Cavaliers, also known as Royalist troops, in 1645, then partially burned when they left. She had moved elsewhere, but William Harrison and his family occupied the portion that was still intact. It was referred to as Campden House. So Campden House, I'll have a picture of the good part, but there weren't, like, pictures of the ruins that I found. But there's still some standing. It's not that it was a bad building. It's that they burned it down so that nobody else could come in there after them. In the morning hours of August 16th, a Thursday, Harrison set off on foot to walk to Charingworth, a village 2 miles from his property. Again, he's 70. It was his job to collect rents and any funds due to the Viscountess. Despite his age, he went alone. So I feel like he must have been very healthy, and you're going to see why more as this proceeds.
And that's really ancient.
In 1660.
Yes.
That's the thing that took me. So there is some doubt as to whether so all of the information, and I'll probably mention this again, so whatever, but all of the information about this situation comes from a write-up, like a chapbook or a write-up by a magistrate that dealt with all this. So that's why people are like, was he 70 or?
Does he become a drug mule?
Nope.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. No, he does not.
Okay.
I don't think the Sinaloa cartel was operating in England in 1660, but I could be wrong. At about 9 p.m. that night, he had not returned home, so it was like 8:45. Some things were like 8 or 9, and then finally there was one account that was all 8:45. And I'm like, how the fuck did you know? Whatever. He had not returned home. His wife became concerned and sent one of her servants, a young man probably in his 20s named John Perry, to find him. So Perry headed out, but by the time the household was ready for bed, neither he nor his employer had returned. The next morning, William Harrison's son Edward headed out to find his dad and Perry. Not long into the walk, he ran into John Perry, who said he'd made it to Charingworth the night before, but had been told Harrison had already been and gone. The two went together to visit a couple nearby villages, first Ebrington, then Paxford. In Ebrington, they ran into someone who knew William, and he told them William had stopped there on his way back from Charingworth. So he had gotten to Charingworth and then to Ebrington, but had only stayed briefly. Then he had set off for home. Ebrington was at the midpoint between Charingworth and Campden, so he'd had about a mile left for him to get home. Maybe a little less. I mean, it probably wasn't exactly. I do have like an old map that I'm going to post that shows those cities. He would have been weighed down by whatever money he'd gotten from the renters in Charingworth, but it turns out it wasn't that much. So I don't think not a BFD when you're 70 and can walk 2 miles one way and 2 miles back, right? While there in Paxford, they found out that a woman had found some items that included a hat, a collar band, and a comb. And I don't know for sure, but I don't think comb as in hair comb. I think it was some manner of clothing, like a comb on a hat or
Okay.
It wasn't a comb like we would think a lot about it now. Along the main road between Ebrington and Campden, they were able to find someone to take them to her, where they discovered the items did belong to William. She in turn took them to the location where she'd found them. The hat and comb had been slashed in multiple places, but there was no blood on them. But the collar band did have blood on it.
Okay.
And they said it was saturated with blood or something like that. So, Edward and John searched the gorse and surrounding area, but they didn't find anything else. Both believed that William must have been robbed and murdered, so at that point they were searching for his body. They weren't looking for a living man anymore. The woman returned to town, and the word quickly spread that William Harrison was missing. He was well known. He was his position was a powerful position, right? Many of the villagers came out to help search, but they had no more luck than the two men had, and those two returned home to bring news to Mrs. Harrison. Next thing John Perry knew, he was being brought in before the justice of the peace. It was thought that he must have robbed his employer and hidden the money in the body. They asked him why he hadn't returned that night, and he gave them a really odd I was like, I'm not going to write down all these details. Rambling story about having headed toward Charingworth, but then run into somebody. And he'd said that he told that someone it's too dark for him to go on, that he wanted to return and get Edward's horse to get all the way to Charingworth. Then he'd returned to the house, but ran into another man who he then went with before returning yet again to his master's house. Then he'd rested in the hen roost for about an hour until he heard the clock strike midnight. I was like, which clock? Did they have a clock in the hen roost? Or is it like from the house? Or is it a church clock?
Okay. I want to see if I have
So he
this
sets
right.
out to find his missing owner, and instead he keeps running into men and being like, oh, hey, blah, 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 and he'd walk with them somewhere.
And so does he keep going back to the house?
Yes. But he kept going to the house gate, and this was a very big property, so it's not like the wife would have seen him.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing, I'm reading between the lines, he didn't want to go.
Correct. He was actually afraid of the dark.
He was fucking around and didn't want to go.
So he was fucking around. So, yeah, he didn't say why he'd gone with the men. He didn't. I'm sure he told them what they discussed. And there was stuff in there. Again, that he gave the names. All that stuff was available. And I was like, this will take me an hour just to read this
a list
bullshit
of names
that he said.
Yeah.
Because he's like, we walked to this field and that, and we did this. And I'm like, I don't care.
No.
And he also, he didn't explain why he had zero concern about finding his missing owner, which is what he'd been sent out there to do.
Yeah.
Or not owner, but master. So he also didn't get the horse, which confused me because he said he told the one person he wanted to get Edward's horse.
Yeah.
And Edward was the son of William Harrison who was missing. And ride out there. And I'm like, but then you didn't get the horse, dude. What?
Yeah.
Instead, he set out on foot once more. And this again was after midnight, but he ran into a fog bank where he got lost. Unable to find his way back or forward, he found a hedge and he lay down and went to sleep for a bit. He woke up very early because this was weird. They gave a time at one point. And I was like, wait, what? All this happened before that time? You'll see in a second. But he woke up very early. It doesn't say exactly what time. And he arrived in Charingworth. And so I'm assuming it was about 4 a.m. that he got there.
Okay.
But he spoke to a bunch of people. Like, everybody was up. And I guess if it's a farming community, I don't know. It is August, so it's longer days, right? So the sun would have come up earlier. But anyway, the time they gave was 5 a.m. for the next thing, and it's for when he leaves the village after talking to people. So that's why I'm assuming it has to be 4 a.m. or so when he gets to town and starts running into everybody. And they're like, oh, yeah, William was here yesterday. He was here in the afternoon, and he left.
That's just weird.
So then Perry gets all this information, and he left the village at 5 a.m. to head home, and that's when he runs into Edward the son.
Okay.
Each person he'd run into and spoken with confirmed that they had the exact experiences Perry had told the justice. So every one of those damn men he ran into backed him up and said, yeah, I met him at the gate, we did this, we went here, we blah, blah. So it's backed up.
Okay.
The justice asked how it was less scary to walk at midnight than at 9 p.m. I liked this justice. I was like, you ask good questions.
I do like that.
And Perry stated that the moon had been fully out at midnight, but had not at 9 p.m. And so it had been darker at 9 p.m. So when he got out of the hen roost, he went, oh, I can see. And then he set out because he could see the road.
Okay.
So, okay. Upon further questioning as to why he hadn't checked upon returning home those 2 times, whether his master was home, perhaps, after he fucked around, he said the bedroom light had been on, which it wouldn't have been if William were home. So the wife had lit the bedroom candle so that her husband can find his way home.
Gotcha.
So again, each time he has an explanation, and it makes its own sense.
Sort of makes sense. Okay.
John Perry was kept in custody until August 23rd, where they questioned him several times. In the meantime, the investigation marched forward. Supposedly, Perry kept telling different people different things, such as that a tinker had killed William or that he was buried in a bean rick in Campden. But when he was in front of the justice, his story always remained the same. And so they were like, you need to tell the justice when you're in front of him next time. And he was like, okay. In my head, he sounded like Leon in Lethal Weapon. Joe Pesci. Okay.
I love that.
That is until Friday the 24th. It remained the same until Friday the 24th. This time he told his jailers that if they took him before the justice, he had something new for them that nobody knew yet. To everyone's shock, John Perry told the justice that his mother and brother had murdered William Harrison. He said that they had wanted money and had been harassing him since he got the job as William's servant, telling him it was his duty to his family to help them get out of poverty. They demanded that he tell them when his boss was heading out to collect rents. He said he had run into his brother the day William headed out and that his brother had cornered him in an area of the Viscountess's garden. His brother had cornered William Harrison.
Right.
In the Viscountess's garden called the Rabbit Warren. And it required a key to get in there. So when a man, because he's talking about, he walked around the outside and he kind of avoided it so his boss wouldn't see him. But he knew once somebody got in there with a key that it must be his master. He had gone in and found his brother and mother standing over his boss and watched his brother take the bag of money out of his pocket and then had watched as his brother strangled his boss to death with a garrote. His mother and brother had said they'd throw the body into a nearby cesspool and he'd left at that time, he said, so he didn't know if they'd done it.
Okay.
He then said that he'd rested in the hen roost like he'd previously stated. He'd run into those people. He'd rested in the hen roost. But at that point, he had been resting in there already with the comb and the clothing items that they found. And he had cut them with a knife to make it look like his boss had been attacked. And then when he went out, set out then toward the other town, he dropped those items.
Gotcha.
He didn't say anything about the blood. Like, he didn't say how he got blood on it. His boss was killed with a garrote. So I guess I could see that, like, cutting into the skin, and it was on his collar.
Right.
Right. But anyway, there's no explanation for that, was my thing. And I was like, okay, I'm making assumptions then. The justice sent for his mother, Joan Perry, and his brother, Richard Perry. He also sent individuals to go search the cesspool, but they found no body. Like, ugh. Can you imagine
a
1660 cesspool and having... No. They searched other nearby bodies of water in the ruins of Campden House, but still found nothing.
I wonder how they searched it.
Some poor little...
Yeah.
Richard and Joan denied the accusation. Richard said he had, in fact, run into his brother that day, that it was true. But there had been no discussion of robbery or even of where William had been heading. John Perry maintained that he was telling the truth, telling them he wouldn't cover for them any longer. Right to their faces in front of the Justice of Peace, he continued saying, you guys did this.
Wow.
As they walked out of the justice's house, a string fell out of Richard's pocket. When the string was showed to John, he said his brother had used it to strangle his boss. Richard said it was his wife's hair tie. Here's the thing, no blood on it. So if there was blood from the garroting that would show up on a collar,
right,
why would it not be in the garrote? That's what would have embedded itself and made the bleeding happen.
Right.
So just saying there was no blood on it.
Okay.
I feel this is important. You're going to see why.
Okay.
Something that came up in the trial was that John Perry, about a year before his boss disappeared, had one day started yelling and been found in the field with some items sliced up. He said 2 men in white had attacked him with swords and run away. Around that same time, someone broke into the Harrison's house while they were at a sermon, getting in via a ladder and by using a plowhead to pry bars from the second floor window because the plowhead was in the bedroom when they got there. So those thieves got out with 140 pounds, which I later reveal, and I'm just going to say it now, it would be about 22,000 pounds at this point. So it was a chunk of money. 140 doesn't sound like a lot, but it was. The judge asked about this, and John said that he'd lied about the men attacking him so he could cover for his brother, who had been the one to break in and steal the money. He also said they'd buried the money but never been able to find it again, so that's why they weren't flush with money right now and needed some more. And his brother had children to support as well as their widowed mother. The father had died several years before, and now his brother was the head of house.
Right.
And had a wife and children and his mother to support. So that's what he was saying. That's why I needed money. All 3 Perrys were tried for the robbery, which they pled guilty to in order to use the Act of Free and General Pardon, Indemnity, and Oblivion, which had just been passed that year,
and
1660.
What's that with it when it's home with its feet up?
The act had come about just that year and meant that if people admitted to crimes during the Civil War, they would be pardoned. So if you committed crimes other than, they had a list of, murder. You couldn't get buggery you could not get pardoned for. Bias. But anyway.
Yeah.
So those you couldn't get pardoned for, but things like a burglary or something like that, you could. And so the court kind of influenced listen, let's just be done with this whole shit show.
Right.
Just plead guilty under the act, and then you get to go, because that basically said you wouldn't be convicted of, because they were considered defensive war crimes, basically.
Okay.
Like defense of self, robbery, but I guess they included that because you needed money because your shit got destroyed. I don't know. So anyway, they plead guilty to use this act. And so they are supposed to be free to go. Right? No, they keep them there, but they're not going to charge them for the murder. At first they say there's no body. We're not going to charge you. So the first judge said, no, I'm not going to charge you without a body. There's not enough evidence for this. But the next spring, a new judge takes charge. And that new judge goes, well, I don't care if there's a body. We're going to try you.
Oh, my God.
So part of it may have been because John Perry was not only still insisting they'd done it, but was now saying his mom and brother were trying to poison him in jail, so he was afraid to eat or drink. Like, where would they get it? Anyway, the new judge also used their having pled guilty to the burglary as evidence that they were criminals, despite the reason they pled being that the court had encouraged them to do so in order to save everyone time.
Okay.
But it was used against them instead. Didn't matter why they did it. All 3 were tried and found guilty of the murder, despite the only evidence being the hair ribbon that didn't have any blood on it, which was a woven fabric called inkle. It wasn't actually like a...
I don't even know what that is.
Ribbon. John said his brother had used it as a garrote again, so it was admitted into evidence, and that was the evidence that convicted 3 people of murder without a body.
Wow.
Yep. Interestingly, once the new judge started the proceedings, John suddenly started saying he'd been crazed, mad, when he made the admissions and accusations that they hadn't done it after all. Too late, bud. You've been insisting for months and months.
Dude, pick a story and stick with it.
They were sentenced to hang for the murder. The people had decided that Joan Perry was a witch, which it sounds like they kind of believed before the incident, which also might be part of why even John Perry was accused in the first place. They felt she had bewitched her boys into committing the crimes. Okay. So I left it out, but whatever. They kept referring to, they thought it proved she was a witch because as they were walking toward the gallows or, between the prison, at some point they were walking and they went past the Perry property, and the older brother's kids ran up to him and they both got nosebleeds, and they were like, see, witchcraft.
Okay.
Yeah. Or they're little kids who are stressed out and see their dad and get I don't know.
Killed and grandma.
So they hanged her first, thinking that maybe once she died, her power over her sons would end and they would come clean or whatever. And of course, they didn't. Richard was the next, the older brother. And he insisted until the end he was innocent. They had not committed these crimes. They had no idea what had happened to William Harrison. But they hanged him. And then John was the last to hang, and they left his body up to rot. They took down Richard and Joan, and they buried him beneath the gallows. So I guess that was a normal thing. Do you like move the gallows after a while? Like, how does that work? So here's where the story gets interesting. You ready for it? In 1662, who should show up aboard the ship? The Lisbon, from Portugal no less, but William Harrison himself, the supposedly dead man.
Where has he been?
Oh, let me tell you! When asked what had happened, and by the way, this information now, all the original information's from Overbury, the magistrate. The information down here is from a letter that I read directly from William Harrison himself. So, when asked what happened to him, he wrote out a letter saying he'd gotten to Charingworth and had to wait until the renters came home from the fields because he'd gotten there too late to get the money before they started, which makes sense if you're chatting with them at 4 a.m., right? He'd only collected 23 pounds, which was way less than he had expected, but he had to leave. They didn't have the money. He couldn't squeeze it out of him. Right. What's the 70-year-old man going to do? Beat you up? So he headed home with a bag. I assume like a cloth bag that had 23 pounds in it. Outside Ebrington, near the bushes where his items had been found, a man on horseback came upon him, nearly running him over. He hit the man's horse on the nose to keep it from running over him, and the man stabbed him in the side with his sword. 2 more men arrived, one of them stabbing him in the thigh, and the 2 helped force him up onto the horse behind the first man, where they then fastened his arms around the man's waist. He said he heard like a click, so it was some sort of actual cuffing type thing. And then they put a cloak over him. The men rode for several days, staying in houses along the way. They did feed him and kind of tend to him. At some point, they took the money he carried, but they didn't take it right away. Like, they said where it was, and they mentioned the houses they stayed in. Again, I didn't feel like I needed to give all of those details. Right. They then put him on a boat, and after sailing for a couple months, some sailor came downstairs, and they were like, there's Turkish boats approaching, and then all these men, so there were multiple men kidnapped, apparently, are down in the hold, and they're like, well, we'll fight. Let us up, and we'll fight the Turkish then. And instead, they get brought up and handed over and get put onto these Turkish boats. So it's like, okay, but where were they going with these men anyway? If they were some sort of slaves, were they going to the Ottoman Empire anyway? There was a very healthy slave trade where they were taking people over there.
But you don't.
But a 70-year-old
man back then? That was like 100-year-old.
This, again, his story is very doubted too. Like,
right.
So everybody's like, that's why this mystery has lasted so long. It's a very popular mystery there. So they handed him over to the Turkish ship, and all of them were put down into a dark hole. He said he couldn't see after that. On land, they were kept in some sort of building. So they got to land, to Ottoman, whatever port for the Ottoman Empire. Right. They traveled inland a couple days, and then they were held in some sort of building, and they just said it could have been a hotel, it could have been a prison. And I'm like, okay, that's very clear. For several days before they were called out to be inspected by 8 men. He and 2 other men were taken from that group after they talked to them. He said he had some medical experience, basically. I don't know if it was true or not, but one of the other men was a weaver, and the other man was a doctor. So it seems like they took people who had abilities.
Who had a trade, yeah.
Yes. So they get taken out of that group, and they were sold to various owners. And William said he was sold to an 87-year-old doctor in the Ottoman Empire. And that doctor lived in Smyrna, which is now Izmir. The doctor had actually lived in England in the past for a time. And his name was not given. So I don't know. He wasn't British, but I mean, was he Turkish? Was it I don't know. Anyway, William's main job as servant was to run the doctor's distillery. The doctor had a distillery.
Okay.
For the most part, William said the doctor was good to him, but he did strike him down to the ground in one altercation when the doctor had told him to pick cotton, and William hadn't done it well or something like that. But the doctor also gave him a double gilt silver bowl with which to drink his water from. So he had gifted him this silver bowl. He said after a year and 9 months, his master died, and his master basically told him to be free to take care of himself. So William takes off. He goes to the port, which he was familiar with because he had to take his master's cotton to the port.
Okay.
He kept talking to people, and they kept saying, the searchers will find you. We can't do this, and he finally gets he's like, bring out your boss, bring out the captain, so he finally gets somebody, and he convinces them to take his silver bowl. That's why that mattered.
Okay.
In exchange for passage to Portugal, where they were heading. So they got to Portugal, and by the way, the boat did end up getting searched, but they had hidden him, and they did not find him. He said they said it's going to be a very uncomfortable trip for you. You're going to be down in like the keel or whatever, and we're going to put a bunch of wood and shit on top of you. And they didn't bring him down. He said food and brandy throughout the trip. Because of course they wouldn't have had fresh water enough, right? So they were drinking, and so brandy was the water. Then they got to Portugal, and they left him at the dock. And so he had now no money, no silver bowl to trade, no means to secure passage to get back to England. So he was on the street. And then at one point, he said there were older gentlemen on the street, and they approached him, and one of them did. And he told him what had happened, and this man decided he was a kindly man or whatever, and he secured him passage on a boat for England. And then he got home. Unfortunately, little is known about William Harrison before or after the events of the Campden Wonder. I spent way too much time on one website that has tried to trace his history and actually went down the list of William Harrisons in the area at the time. There were a lot of William Harrisons and why they thought this one might be him and so on and so forth. But this person feels that without knowing more about him in reality, it's hard to solve the mystery. But if you knew something about him, you might know why he disappeared and whether he was telling the truth or whether he just took off.
Wow.
You know? So it's thought he died in 1672 then, after all this, and that his was an important position, the powerful position, all that good stuff. The money stolen from his house before his disappearance was, again, that £22,000, a significant chunk. I have to wonder if it was his or the Viscountess's when that happened. But he was living in the portion of a massive set of buildings that have been burned down, right? He's living in basically a ruins. But it sounds like his part was pretty nice, and they still had the farm outbuildings that stood, so. And they farmed, in addition to the rest of his job. I know.
It's just such a weird story.
Whatever his background, this mystery has endured for multiple reasons. One, why would John Perry admit to a crime he had no part in, and why throw his family under the same bus with him? Two, what really happened to William Harrison? If he was truly 70, he wouldn't have been a good candidate to kidnap and sell into slavery.
No.
Like, this man must have been the spryest 70-year-old that ever 70-year-olded. So the magistrate I've referred to who wrote about the initial crime and trying of them and death and then him returning was Sir Thomas Overbury. And he was thought to be the magistrate of Gloucestershire. And, I made it. Not even gonna try. And so it was thought he was the one who the original judge, perhaps, that had to investigate everything. And so he put it together. It's a very long title, so I didn't write it down. Because it's like this tale of Joan Perry, Edward Perry, and John Perry as they were tried for, it just went on, and I was like, okay.
The whole story is in the headline.
Okay, Sir Thomas, shuddy. And it did gain, like, a bunch of attention after he did this write-up on it. And I think he did it around the time that William Harrison would have died, which would make sense, perhaps.
Right.
There is, of course, the possibility that the man who returned was not actually William Harrison.
Oh.
Back in that day, it's not like everybody had a picture. It could have been someone who took advantage of having heard the story or run into the real William Harrison at some point.
Was his wife still alive?
Here's the thing about that.
I'm like, wouldn't she have...
She hanged herself soon after he returned.
Oh.
Yeah, the mystery deepens. So why did she hang herself? And the question is, of course, did she really? There weren't newspapers. They didn't have newspapers, so this is all word of mouth. But that one was a big chunk of the story passed down, is that after Harrison returned, Mrs. Harrison was found hanged. Huh. So did she hang herself or did he hang her? Did she go along? Because at that time, if you were a woman, she wouldn't have taken his job then. She wouldn't have gotten to fill his position and be bringing income into the family. So they'd probably had quite a poverty-ridden 2 years while he was missing. Although his older son, it's thought, might have stepped up and gotten the position in his place, which means he would have then been supporting them. But at that time, a woman couldn't live on her own. So she might have taken a man who said, I'll be your husband and I'll take care of you. Who knows? Nobody knows. So, but here's another question. What if they really did, the Perrys really did kill somebody because he said he didn't see him? And it was somebody who had a key and got in there or something. Like, maybe they did kill somebody, but I don't think they did. I really don't think Joan and Edward did jack shit. I don't understand what John Perry's, mental problem was.
I'm guessing John Perry was crazy because didn't it say they found him in the field screaming
that he'd been attacked.
And cutting something up and...
Yes.
Okay.
So, and they said they don't know if his questioning involved some kind of torture. And so after a week in there is when he said this finally. So they don't know. There is no report saying that he was badly mistreated, but he might have been. But it's like, then admit to it. Don't say, I didn't do it, but my mom and my brother did. My brother, who has a family to take care of, he did. So those kids, by the way, and wife were left without anybody.
Yeah, any support.
So their family was destroyed too. Harrison's family might have been because he was gone.
This is just so weird.
Yes. And then people were like, well, did she hang herself because she felt guilty once Harrison came back and it was really him? And she went, oh shit, those people got to die.
Right.
And
but
he
it wasn't her
dead.
fault.
Right. And so it's like, yeah. So that's the thing, is that this mystery, there's just so much out of both sets of events, what John Perry says and what William Harrison said, that don't make sense.
Yeah.
Like, really? They said this 70-year-old man walking down the street with a cane, apparently he had a cane because in his own letter he said he tried to ward him off with his cane.
Okay. He had a cane.
Yeah, and he was walking the 2 miles on the cane, and so they took him as a slave? I don't think
so. No, that makes no sense. I mean, the only way that would make sense is if you captured a group of people.
Yes.
And there was somebody older in there.
And if you have a group of men, which they supposedly did, the 3 that were chosen, one was 70, and the other ones weren't good enough?
Yeah, no.
It's so weird.
These people are all high.
They're crazy. So then people are like, well, was he sent on some sort of mission by the Viscountess that he wasn't allowed to tell anybody, and that's why he went out that way? But why wouldn't I guess maybe if she was the one responsible, she would have gotten her money either way, right? Because she would have said, all right, you take off, bring me the money, and go, because he did go and collect the money.
Right.
And then, like, people surmised Mrs. Harrison knew something about it. Anyway, it's a whole crazy mess. But
that's just bizarre.
Yes. And apparently I looked at pictures of the town. It's that neat old England town look.
Cool.
And all of that. Still, it's supposed to be one of the more beautiful villages out there. So
nice.
Yep.
Well, I don't know how to follow that.
Well, but you're gonna.
So sometimes I give my little pieces titles, and sometimes I don't. So this time I did, and I titled it, Does God Hate Fat People?
Oh, that's what I wanted to talk about in Kill Creek too. One of the horror authors, Daniel Slaughter, in it, there is such a point made that he's fat.
Yes.
He's like, his girth, he moved his girth here, like every reference of his movement or appearance was about him being fat. So I was surprised you didn't say anything about that, because that's like one of the things, your peeves.
It is one of my peeves.
And I was thinking, I was like, I feel like Kill Creek was almost like an homage to The Shining, maybe, like him trying to be Stephen King.
Yeah.
And again, though, there's so much more fucking horror in The Shining than Kill Creek. But anyway, and so we both know that King had a thing about fat. Yes. Although I did find out he was fat when he was younger. And so that may be his own catharsis of it or something.
And I probably noticed it when I was reading the book and then just forgot, because it's been a while.
Yeah.
So, okay. So yes, does God hate fat people? So this time I have to say thank you to Deanna Knipling, who posted a reference to this woman. I don't even know if I read that whole article. I just went, oh hell, what the hell's going on here? Right. So there is a tiny mystery, but it's mostly mayhem, and there are monsters. So I'm hitting on all the bases. So I had never heard of Gwen Shamblin Lara until last week. I didn't know she founded a Christian diet program, much less her own church. So just so we're clear, I do want to say up front, I am not knocking Christianity. I am an atheist. But I don't think people who believe in religion are necessarily wrong.
Right.
Which I know seems antithetical, but it works for me. So basically,
I feel it serves a purpose. My problem is just when it serves a bad purpose.
Yes. I'm very much live and let live.
Yes.
So we're talking about Gwen. And I am, oh my God, I'm not the only person who thinks she's fascinating, because HBO did a 5-part series called The Way Down: God, Greed, and the Cult of Gwen Shamblin. Prior to that 5-part series, she'd been on everything. She'd been in women's magazines. She'd been on Larry King. She'd been on the Today Show. She even produced her own live internet show.
Wow.
So, religious.
With that hair, really.
Right? Oh my God. We are going to talk about the hair. She doesn't. I am going to. So religiously, Gwen started out raised in a Church of Christ family. It is a non-denominational Christian religion. It's based on the New Testament. They don't believe instruments belong in worship. So when they sing
Like
hymns, they're all a cappella. There's no piano.
Oh, instruments. Got you. I was thinking instrument as in tool, I guess, or object.
No, I was just like, really? That's such an odd thing to be dogmatic about. But, and it is very patriarchal. It's run by the men. What kills the priest? But it comes up.
Duh. Christianity is patriarchal.
It'll be important later. So nutritionally, because remember, she started a Christian-based diet program. So, but here's the thing. She got a degree in dietetics, then a master's in food and nutrition with an emphasis in biochemistry.
So she actually had science.
She did actually have this background, and she's no dummy. You don't get a master's degree if you're stupid. She worked in her field at Memphis State University for 5 years. She worked for the Department of Health in Memphis for 5 years. So she had experience in the field. So in 1980, she began her weight control consulting practice. And I found several sources that said it was because she struggled with her weight in college. Let me tell you, there are no photos out there of her looking.
Looks like a little bird.
She's very slender.
Yeah.
But then I did find something somewhere that said she gained 20 pounds.
Oh, whoop-de-doo.
I'm like, please. But
I gained 20 pounds yesterday.
I hate
Water weight.
So there was nothing there's certainly no pictures out there of her. But then I think
a lot of people don't let you photograph them if they're feeling overweight.
I also think she very much controlled how she was perceived, what got put out there.
Which again takes me back to the hair. Keep going.
Yes. So in 1994, a Woman's Day article said, this is a quote from the article, she'd become convinced that genetics, metabolism, and behavior modification alone couldn't explain why some people were thin and others battled the bulge. Mm-hmm. So to me, that's where she goes, I have all this scientific background, but I'm going to take a hard left here because that can't explain everything. Yeah, why use science? So 1986, she started the Way Down Workshop, and it's Way, W-E-I-G-H, the Way Down Workshop, which had no food restrictions, no exercise requirements or weigh-ins, no calorie counting. So instead of snacking, read the Bible. Pretty much. I just summed it up there.
You know what? That's not that absurd considering I did Weight Watchers and they were like, just brush your teeth if you're hungry.
Right.
And I was like, now I'm hungry and minty fresh. And when I ultimately break, it's going to taste like shit.
Yes. So a couple of points. Way Down is not the first, or probably the last, religion-based weight loss program. There's one called, it's referred to as First Place, but the whole title is First Place for Health, which was actually started in a Houston church in 1981, and it's still going today. And that's kind of a combination Bible study with weight loss accountability. They do have weigh-ins. They do. Now, I'm not going to pretend I'm an expert on it. I happen to have a friend who has joined one of these. But there is Bible study but it's a more it's a more focused approach because it talks about health and being mentally healthy and treating your body well and it does suggest you get movement every day. That's the one thing about this Way Down program. They're like, you don't have to exercise. You don't have to try new recipes.
You just have to read the Bible when you're hungry.
Yes. So here's the thing. Don't exercise to lose weight. If there's something you enjoy doing, like riding your bike, if you enjoy riding your bike just for the sheer pleasure of riding your bike, then continue to do that. But don't do it because you think it's going to help you lose weight.
Well, I mean, technically, exercise really isn't to make you lose weight. It's to make you fit.
I got that.
Yeah.
So, to be fair, I checked what WebMD said about Way Down, because you can go in there and check different diet plans, all kinds of different diet plans. Because WebMD, we are all doctors now.
Right.
So.
And we all have cancer.
Yes.
Yeah.
And diseases that nobody's ever heard of.
Correct.
So, this approach, Gwen's approach is not complete and total bullshit. So, because a lot of diets advise evaluating and changing your relationship to food.
Yeah.
So that's not bullshit. There's actually, I don't even know why I had to include this, but I did. There's a woman I follow on Facebook. Her page is called Losing 100 Pounds with Corinne, who talks about this very topic. It's all about changing your relationship to food, only eating when you're hungry and all that. The difference is Corinne is very sweary and has a very secular approach, which is much more appealing to me. She's not religious at all. She's like, fuck it, y'all. Just like, I love her. So back to WebMD's assessment. Eat when you're hungry, stop when you're full. Mm-hmm. That's all. Read the Bible. If you're, eat when you're hungry, stop when you're full. And if your soul is hungry, read the Bible. So it is tackling the topic of emotional eating.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Sideways.
Yeah. You don't have to buy any special equipment. You don't have to make weird food. You don't have to take supplements. WebMD did not like the fact that they're like, don't even worry about exercise. But they say, the bottom line is they say, if you have strong religious convictions, this could work for you. They do diss the vague instructions because it is very, very vague. For instance, they say, keep eating your favorite food, just cut the portion in half. And I'm like, how does that help someone whose favorite food is an entire triple chocolate fudge cake? Because eating half of a whole fucking cake, okay, you are cutting calories.
You are.
But that's still not healthy. So it doesn't really focus on healthy eating.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going back to Gwen conquering the world of weight loss.
Like all of it is just about eat less food.
Yeah. So, and this is where I'm going to say, she's conquering the world of weight loss with her very large blonde hair. It sort of reminded me of David Bowie in...
Oh, Labyrinth?
Labyrinth.
I feel like it was even more absurd than that.
It was taller.
There's like a tiny face surrounded by blonde hair.
Yeah.
In the picture of her.
She can't possibly be having just a single bumpet. It is so tall.
Her hair weighs as much as her ass.
Probably more.
Because she's a little bird.
Here's the other thing that is make it an odd hairstyle. You guys are like, why are you obsessed with her hair?
Because it's really bad, y'all.
It's fucking magnificently outstanding. It's also straight as a stick.
Yeah.
It's not like it. Now, I did see one picture where she had it curled, but it looks like a haystack, sort of. And yes, I am going to post, I've been copying pictures. So yes, I will post a picture of her. And she has Tammy Faye makeup, sort of.
Yeah.
Not the heavy eyeshadow necessarily, but she has the very distinctive lip liner. Now, okay, in the 80s, that was a thing. But even later, she has a very distinctive lip liner that's a different shade than the lipstick.
Tattooed?
But just like Tammy Faye did. The big difference. And I'm like, no, okay. So, she starts out hosting this program at a Baptist church near Memphis in the 90s. The program was 12 weeks of seminars guided by videos and audio tapes featuring Gwen. By 1994, the program was offered at roughly 600 churches across 35 states, which that's a lot of growth, except 1 year later, it was in 1,000 churches in 49 states, Great Britain, and Canada.
What's the one state?
I don't know.
I would love to know that. One state was like, no.
I'm guessing Alaska, but I have no reason to guess that. I'm going with
California. No, I'm just kidding. They do all the diets. Most of them start there.
Yeah. So, in 1996, the organization of 40 employees actually built a headquarters in Franklin, Tennessee, and this was for the business. Although she referred to what she was doing as a ministry. She's ministering to these people. She's bringing these people closer to God and improving their health. So, of those 40 employees, one of the original employees was Tanya Cardente. I'm guessing that's how you pronounce it. So she was a firm believer in this ministry, and that's how it's described to her, and that's what Gwen has called it. That's what she calls it in interviews, a ministry to help people. So Cardente becomes a phone counselor, And that's when she learned it was not a ministry. It was all about business. There was a product. Yeah, I know. What a surprise. There was a product to market, and churches were their outlet.
Yeah.
So it didn't matter who called or why they called or how many times in the past they'd called. The staff was trained to immediately ask if you have you bought Gwen's latest book? And do you have these products? Do you have this? Do you have the keychain? Do you have the measuring cups? Do you have the Bible bookmarker? I don't know. All these products.
Yeah.
So when she was being interviewed by Larry King, he challenged her, saying, "It's all about the money with you, isn't it?" Mm. And she replied that half of her income went to taxes and the other half went back into the business to benefit more people. And Larry King was kind of like, I got to call bullshit on that. So there was a lawsuit filed by former employees where she was questioned about her income. And she said her income was between her and God.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that kind of their standard lie?
Yeah.
My income and all of my airplanes and mansions.
Exactly. She owned a lavishly decorated $3.2 million home. And this was in the 90s, not $3.2 million in today's dollars. She drove a Mercedes, owned BMWs, and she claimed she would sell it all in a heartbeat if the business or the ministry needed it. So, in 1999, Gwen founded the Remnant Fellowship Church. And there's a lot of speculation that she founded her own church because, well, first of all, if you have a church, you don't have to pay taxes. Mm-hmm. But second of all, because the church that she grew up with did not allow women in leadership roles.
Of course.
And Gwen wasn't taking any, she was in charge. She and her hair were very much in charge. It didn't take long after the church was founded for rumors to begin to surface. They were accused of advocating and perpetuating child abuse, fostering unhealthy relationships with food, and exercising extreme control over their members. So, for instance, if you were a member of this church and you came to one of your pastors and said, my marriage is terrible, I want to get a divorce. No, we don't believe in divorce. And during this time, between 1997 and 2018, Gwen published 14 books on religion and weight loss. Wow. That's a lot. Yeah. How do you find... And I don't believe... I have not read these books. I did look at her online, though, and listen to her a little bit. I don't know how you can find 14 books worth of things to say about religion and weight loss.
Well,
that's basically read the Bible if you're hungry.
They can talk all day about the freaking Bible.
So, besides teaching people how to lose weight, and you could go, this church is still going, this program is still going, and you can go look at it. Oh my God, the website's a fucking trip. It claims that Gwen's teachings can overcome eating disorders, addiction, other kinds of addiction, anxiety, and depression. And to me, that is very dangerous ground when you are giving completely unfounded fucking medical advice. Lose 10 pounds and you won't be depressed anymore. That's not how that fucking works.
I feel like that's what the doctors try and say all the time. Oh, you have all these physical ailments? Well, lose 10 weight, pounds and I'll be fine. No, why don't you look at what the elements are?
Yeah.
And do your job. But, yeah.
So, also, they engaged, both the church and the diet program engaged in body shaming, which the faster you lose weight, the more devout you are.
Oh, God.
I'm like, that's just a load of horseshit right up there. The skinnier you are, the closer to God. Mm-hmm. They also advocated strongly that their congregation use corporal punishment on their children. One woman was told to spank her children until they cried or she wasn't spanking them hard enough.
Not that. That's just child abuse.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Speaking of which, this sadly brings us to the tragic case of 8-year-old Joseph Smith, whose parents were church members. They would give their son what they considered a normal whipping was 10 lashes.
Wow.
Yeah, an 8-year-old. And it didn't start when he was 8. Sometimes his arms were tied behind his back.
Oh.
Other times they made his brother hold him down so he couldn't run away while he was being beaten.
That's gross.
He would be locked in his room or in his closet for extended periods of time and told to focus on a picture of Jesus. On the day he died, he had been subjected to multiple whippings. The cause of death was head trauma from sudden and from long-term abuse. So what happened?
Where were they whipping him?
I believe they were slapping him around.
Okay.
They also would lock him in a wicker case and padlock it shut. Mm-hmm. His parents were charged with first-degree cruelty to children, false imprisonment, aggravated assault, and murder. So you might be saying, what does this have to do with the church? Well, when the parents were arrested, this is all coming out. This is all... And the parents are not ashamed of what they have done.
No, they were told it was correct in their religion.
Yes.
Again, that's where the danger comes in.
The church paid for their lawyers. Gwen and the church publicly advocated for the parents to have the charges dropped.
Does she even have kids?
Yes, she has 2 children.
Oh.
2 years after the parents were found guilty and sentenced to life plus 30 years, the church petitioned for a retrial, which was denied, which it should be.
Good.
I hope they fucking rot there. So, besides this, there's the personal hypocrisy. In the early years, her husband, David Shamblin, was a very big part of her enterprise, was a very big part of her organization. You saw him all the time. You saw him in videos. You saw him in interviews. But as the years rolled by, guess what? What happens when you get old? You gain weight. Some of us. I realize that everybody does. So that was an obvious, very visual demonstration of his lack of faith. Mm-hmm. So in 2018, after 40 years of marriage, Gwen divorced him and married Joe Lara. Again, despite having told other church members that they could not get divorced. Mm-hmm. So in 2021, Gwen and Joe were killed in a small plane crash, along with her son-in-law, 2 other couples from church, and the pilot. Now that's where the mystery comes in, because nobody really knows what happened. It was a small craft. The conditions, I mean, it wasn't a crystal clear day, but the condition, it wasn't rainy, it wasn't stormy. Visibility was good. The pilot took off and was told to ascend, and they never heard from him again. And he crashed into the lake. I wouldn't wish that on anybody, because he crashed. The water was like 2 feet deep where he crashed. I mean, it was a hard crash, and these people were just suddenly gone. Now, yes, there are theories out there that she faked her own death, but nobody's buying that.
Yeah, you can't disguise that here.
So, oh my God, I can't believe she would be able to calm that down. So, despite all her big talk about supporting the church, and the bulk of her estate went to her 2 children, not to the church. Her real estate holdings alone were worth millions of dollars. Her daughter, Elizabeth Shamblin Hannah, remains as one of the leaders of the church. It was very hard speculation that the daughter was just going to take the mom's place and be the figurehead, but it doesn't look that way. When you look at the website, she's just one of the leaders. Now, her son, Michael Shamblin, has fucking just dropped right off the map. He has dropped out of sight, but he had a very tumultuous relationship with the church forever. He was a married man. It was really funny. The daughter and the son each had 4 children. Each gave 3 of the children names that began with G and then one with a C. Both. That just was so weird. Mm-hmm. And some of them were odd names. I didn't write them down. But he was engaged in a lot of infidelity. His weight fluctuated, so he would be part of the church, then he wouldn't be part of the church. He wanted to be there, he didn't want to be there. But to me, it's very, very sad that your job and apparently your mother's love for you is dictated by what you weigh.
Yeah.
That's just sad.
I think probably true a lot sometimes. Anyway.
Yes. So, and it's just... She tapped into, and I'm sure there are other religious-based weight loss programs.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not aware of them, but why would I be? But they claim on the website, her website, the memorial, it claims that she founded, and this was like in a day, she founded a construction company and was active in every phase of that company. She had a real estate business that she was very involved with. She was running this business, and she was involved in every level of the way down business. And she founded the church. I'm not kidding you. It listed what she did in a week. She preached twice a week, and she led fellowship, and she made tapes, and she did this series on YouTube. And I'm just like, no human being can get that much done. So, but it sounds like she did get interested in real estate and knew what she was doing there.
Yeah, again, you said she wasn't dumb.
No.
She was very bright.
But
she just had questionable motives.
Yes.
And follow through.
And you could have, and here's the whole thing to me. So this took off because it was in the early 80s when diet stuff doesn't sell. She could have used this to well and truly help people. And she could have made a profit, B, a very decent living, but she could have done it without the fat shaming. She could have used more of the science that she already had in her background.
Yeah, it's weird that her diet was so simplistic. And so when she had those, she could have really made a diet plan that made a difference. And that wasn't just like, well, read a Bible when you're hungry. That was more religious than it was a diet, is what it was.
Yes. And so for instance, I don't think anything in this program would help someone who was a compulsive eater.
Right.
Because they're not eating because they're not stopping and thinking about why they're eating. So my sources for this were that 1994 interview in Women's Day by Paula Spencer, News Channel 15 investigation into the church, People magazine, a website called bustle.com, Where Are Gwen Shamblin's Kids Now? I don't know if this is a real name or not. Oh, and WebMD, of course, and Wikipedia. But the thing on bustle.com, the author's name was given as Justice Namaste. So I'm like, well, I'm not sure if that's
they could have changed it to that.
They could have. Or it could be a pen name. I'm not sure. But yeah, wait until you guys see the picture. Thanks for tuning in.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to Mysteries, Monsters, and Mayhem.
Find us on Facebook and Instagram or at our website, mysteriesmonstersmayhem.com.
Please like, rate, and review, follow, and share wherever your favorite podcasts are downloaded.
Thank you for listening and supporting our podcast. We'll be back next week with more shenanigans.